Hi, my name is Michelle Mirabella, and I'll be reading an excerpt from the climate fiction short story Seed by Mexican author Iliana Vargas. Seed was first published in the fall 2019 issue of Exchanges and was my first published literary translation. I'd like to share it with you in honor of Women in Translation Month. Seed. The afternoon I saw her coincided with the time when the days started becoming strange. When the sun would impregnate the skin after just a few minutes of walking in the street, and the wind would suddenly whip up in icy gusts carrying shards of rock that slashed eyes and lips like shrapnel. People walked quickly and in silence. Most covered their faces with ski masks, scarves, or pashminas to protect themselves from the painful, tiny blows. No one knew exactly what was happening, but they could sense it was some phenomenon related to climate change. The strange thing was that the nearly invisible shards of rock did no damage to fabric, but when they made contact with the skin, they'd glow and then evaporate, leaving behind a burning sensation and some terrible marks for hours afterward. Some said the shards were the spit of the devil, clear signs of a new apocalypse. Others believed they were crumbs from the bowels of the earth that had found a way to escape and conquer a new place. Still others said they were particles from the melting poles, which would explain why they'd come in such cold lashes to remind us of the disaster we'd created. Amid such paranoia and uncertainty, I was surprised to see her there, lying so peacefully on the grass in the garden of the bakery around the corner from my house. Some passers-by glanced at her out of the corners of their eyes and continued on their way. I didn't quite know what to do. It seemed that nothing bothered her, but I was sure that anyone who'd been exposed to the sun and the wind like that should have been feeling at least a little pain. I decided to move closer, but with the intention of asking if she was okay, if she had somewhere to go, if she needed to call someone. But her stoicism held me back, and I couldn't say anything. I just stood watching her for a long time, like someone who watches water in a pot, waiting for it to boil. She had her eyes closed, though I didn't know if she was sleeping. She'd suddenly smile, or frown, or stick out her tongue and lick her lips. Her fingers played with the tips of the still freshly cut grass, and once in a while they'd disappear beneath the dry earth. She was wearing a dress made from thick black wool, with a turtleneck and long sleeves that barely reached her knees. And since she wasn't wearing stockings or tights, the uncovered parts of her legs, like her face, were in shambles due to the blows from the strange, microscopic, and incandescent material carried by the wind. I could see the reddish marks on her skin. Some were more intense than others, but she didn't have a single scar. I'd already heard about this. The burns caused by these shards could cause blisters and blemishes that would slowly disappear, as if they'd never been there. There was a bundle by her side, also black. It looked like one of those old sacks of tied-up fabric that residents of the coastal zones would make to hold their belongings when they didn't have suitcases or backpacks and had to abandon their homes, fleeing hurricanes and tsunamis. They'd go to the closest cities, where they were welcomed in the cafes, schools, and restaurants of the poorest neighborhoods. There, they were offered food and a place to sleep, but most of them would spend sleepless nights thinking about the repairs they'd have to do when they returned to their towns. It didn't matter how great the destruction or damage to their houses had been. They'd always go back. That's why the city people liked them and even helped them with construction materials and provisions, because they knew that those from the coast would never settle permanently in their city. Those towns and cities no longer exist. They're part of the ocean now, which went about swallowing that earth in increasingly violent laps and gulps.